Hi, I'm Craig Kausen. I'm the chairman of the Chuck Jones Center for Creativity. If you want to learn more about the Red Dot auction that's happening on May 6th, look at the information here. I think you'll enjoy it. The Chuck Jones Center for Creativity was founded when Chuck was still alive in 1999, and really the whole in a nutshell, it was the question that came up pretty much between originally Linda and me, my mother, Chuck's daughter. How can the experience that so many people have had regarding Chuck, his persona, his philosophies, on inspiring imagination and creativity? And so the organization continues to attempt to foster creativity and innovation through arts-based programs to allow predominantly young people, but a lot of different groups, really anybody, to find the creativity that exists that's unique inside of every person. And so to create environments, to create programs, to create challenges that allow people to find that, express it, and then learn how to use it in other parts of their lives. So that's really the goal of the entire organization. The programs for the Chuck Jones Center for Creativity, which is really what the essence of the center is all about, is doing programs to have hands-on interactive environments. Now that we're back in person, it is about the putting challenges in front of people, putting a prompt, having a guideline for them to achieve something. And I don't mean to create an achievement like they've done a great job. It's more of, here's something to do. How are you going to do it? What's the experience of creating something? And they, in a program with multiple people, it's not about having them do something the same as the person next to them. If the prompt is maybe a mammal, and everybody picks a mammal, and maybe there's reference materials, and then they get to have their own version of that, and the teaching artists are there to help them across the next steps of what they're doing. If there's any challenges, to be there to support. But it really is encouraging. If somebody says, well, what should I draw? Then the answer is, well, what do you want to draw? Well, what do you want me to draw? Well, what do you want to draw? And then it's like really digging down deep and finding the essence of something. If I remember, there was a program that was the prompt was transportation, and it was actually a seniors program, and everybody addressed it and approached it differently. And they had small groups, which is a big part of what we do. A lot of times is to do small groups. So there's collaboration, there's discussion, there's mediation, you name it, that are so critical. But then the people play off each other and come up with a goal, and then each person puts their own essence into it. And so to come up with, and one thing leads to another, and whether it's with a group or an individual, one thing leads to another. And those little ideas, if they're allowed to flourish, Chuck always talked about that those ideas come up, and as long as you don't kill them immediately with, oh, that's not a good thing, or if somebody else doesn't do that, then great ideas can come to fruition, and you never know where they're going to end up. So that is the essence of our programs, is to create that environment for the inspiration of that creative thinking. One of the things that people ask us quite a bit is why do you utilize arts so much in what you do? First of all, Chuck being a traditional fine artist, and then bringing an art form of animation, bringing an art form of writing and drawing, and all the things that he did as an artist throughout his lifetime, gave us a foundation and a guideline for it. But Chuck was very clear that creativity is not only in the arts, and arts does not mean creativity. They're not synonyms to each other. That creativity exists in every discipline, whether it be science or medicine or business or education, anything, that there is creativity that can exist in that. And so, but for the arts, it gives, there's no necessarily right answer. And I think that is something that, if you're doing math, you can be very creative in math, but the goal oftentimes is to get the exact right answer. In art, Chuck always said, you can't be king of art. You can't be president of art. That each of us brings something unique. And so it frees the mind from having to believe that there's a right way to do something and a right goal at the end of it. It has to do with the process of doing it. And then you get to figure out, is this where I want to stop? Is this where I want to abandon this work of art? But it allows for lots of different types of thinking to achieve the goal of creating something. And so that, I believe, is why the arts in general are so freeing. And that understanding, that practice of finding and exercising the creative thinking that exists in all of us translates to other parts of our life. So if we need to solve a problem, if we get a flat tire in the middle of a highway where nobody is and there's no cell phone service, what do you do? I mean, solving problems that creativity will bring allows us to solve problems in our lives, in the world, in society. So that's how important these programs are, to teach, particularly the young people, how they can adapt through an ever-changing environment in our communities. People would ask Chuck, what his favorite characters are, and what is my favorite program, and that for me is very simple. I can answer that. I'm an engineer by training. It was my first career, and so Acme Inventions is my hands down favorite. I never did the 100,000 bad drawings that Chuck and his teacher at Chenard said you had to do to really become that drawing artist. I didn't do those, but I did have to solve problems my entire career throughout school. And so the idea of putting objects, and usually they're random things. If we go out to a university or a museum or a school, we ask them to gather up things from their environments for their community. We'll bring the standard stuff, whether it be wire or adhesives or whatnot. But we pile all of that in the middle of the room and usually there's a prompt, and usually there's, well, here's something we're going to do. It's not just a free for all. There's a discipline, and you've got 45 minutes to do XYZ as either a group or an individual. And the idea of taking a look at what's in front of me. And so for me to experience it myself and to go, how am I going to create a robot? And I did see a young man do it one time with his family, that to create something new that would solve a problem in their life. And he and his family created a robot that was designed to clean his room for him. And so it was an ongoing problem for him and his family that he didn't clean his room, but he created a robot. And you could see all of the things around and how they pieced it together and the way it would work, and that if it actually did the functioning, and it had a vacuum hose, and it had a disposal, and it had all these different things. And for me, that putting together the opportunity, and back as an electrical engineer, looking at the potential energy of something. What is the potential that's sitting here to put together to do something? And you ask, did it ever occur to me that is, it was something special? Back, it must have been about 2009 or 2010. We were working with a group of high school students, and they went room to room experiencing different things. And ours was on the experience of creativity and really exposing them. And these are 15 to 17 or 18-year-olds, and there must have been 30 people in the room. And so down the whole middle of the table, there were all these objects and all this material, and they were given a prompt, and they had to work as a small team. And I remember at the end of it that, it was probably a 2-hour program, and the creations, the high ones, the low ones, whatever it was they were making, that there was so much energy in each of those groups. And I remember passing by one of the groups, and the young lady, she probably 15 or 16, and she looks at her friends and she goes, okay, this by far was the greatest program and experience that we've had today. I just don't understand why. And it was sort of that moment of like, why did we just do this? And the answer was because you got together and solved something, and you did something that was different and new and creative. And that you can take with you into other parts of your life. And she's like, oh, and you could see just lightness coming through her. And so, that was 15 years ago. And I still to this day remember the excitement of that sort of situation coming to life in one of our programs. So the red dot auction was really an inspiration of a gentleman who used to work with us. He fortunately retired for his own enjoyment of life, but it was wonderful that he came up with this concept that we could ask some of our closest friends who are artists to donate a work of art. And back then we were very strict on it had to be on a 12-inch by 12-inch canvas. And but the concept that he brought to it was you don't know who the artist is. And there was a variety. My daughter at the time, I think she was maybe 5 years old and did a work of art. And it was wonderful for what a 5 year old is going to make on a canvas at that time. And there were others who donated who, their original artwork on a 12 by 12-inch canvas might sell internationally for thousands and thousands of dollars. But the idea was you put them on the wall and allow people to bid on them for what they like because they're all up there anonymously. And so at that point, everything started at the same price. Everybody could then, when the auction happened, a red dot in the art world means that you've purchased something. And so we allowed people to start the silent auction bidding at this low price, and then they built on it. But if somebody was tired of competing on it, then all of a sudden they could take their red dot that they had. And back in the day, we used to say you only had 2 red dots so that everybody could have a chance. And you could go up and put it on, and it had a buy it now price on it. And so to that, we still have that opportunity to have artists. And now we've grown, we've had as many as 150 or 200 works of art donated. I think this year for Red Dot 13, we've got somewhere around 100 works of art that are being donated. Again, from students to world acclaimed famous artists who are donating their works. Some of them are signed this year, but most of them, because we've got a special subset called the Black Wing section, where they use a Black Wing pencil, which was Chuck's favorite pencil. But they all get to be bid on. And this year we've expanded so much that we now have bidders from all over the country, world, actually. We've got multiple countries involved who bid on these things from afar and on a digital application, Network for Good. And people get to, again, bid on these things. The night of the auction, the red dot values of those get turned on. And so that if somebody decides that they just want to own that, and they don't want to be bidding back and forth, they can red dot it digitally this time. So that the inspiration was to ask our friends who are artists that we want to celebrate to be involved in this fundraiser. People then take home something that is of value, whether there's an intrinsic monetary value to it or just something that will give them joy for the rest of their life, to raise money so that we can perpetuate these programs that affect so many people in so many communities, both around Southern California and beyond, because now we've got programs all over the country. So the idea of who's there, and I did say that there are some of the artists that are going to sign their works, and the reason we did that this year is because we've got a small section of the auction that a handful or so of artists who love the Blackwing pencil. The Blackwing pencil has been reestablished over the last decade, and because the original manufacturer went out of business years ago. And so pencils.com came up and reclaimed the trademark and has been publishing them. People are saying they're very similar to what Chuck used to use. And so they have given a number of artists pencils, some of these Blackwing pencils to use for these drawings. And so they have created graphite drawings, and they can do whatever they like. They could do a fine art sketch. They could use characters. I will tell you that one of our most famous artists right now, Ben Olson, out of Florida, has done an incredible Blackwing drawing. And I haven't announced it to anybody, but I'm announcing it to you that multi-Academy Award winner Byron Howard of Disney has done a drawing of Mark Anthony and Kitty for the event. It's his first contribution to it, and it was done with a Blackwing that we sent him. And so Tim Rogerson is donating, Fabio Napoleoni is donating, So there are uh, a wide Jeff DeGrandis, who Chuck mentored back at CalArts back in the 80s, is donating a painting. So there's dozens of world-renowned artists that are donating works of art. And so some of them, these Blackwing, will be signed, and they'll be identified as who they are. I think one of my biggest joys about this type of fundraiser is, one, it does bring together an artist community who believes in what we do in our programs. And so they are so generous to provide us their original works and to allow us to share them with the world to raise money for this. They put time and effort and creativity into creating these. And then we get to offer them to people who love it. I know some people who've been coming from the very beginning who continue to add things to their red dot collections over the years. And so for me, the artists are there as well. So usually we've got 75 to 100 artists in the room who have created these works of art, and they get to interact, and people get to meet them and know them and see how, one, generous they are, and two, what wonderful people they are. And I think that's part of what the love of art has to do with. And these are artists that could be doing things in their home for their own enjoyment, and some of them, as I said, are world-renowned artists who believe in these programs. So I think each of them understands that the magic of creating artwork and finding creativity is so critical, not just for future artists, but for future humans, that they love to be there and see people's enjoyment as they look at them and bid on them and then eventually take them home. It's probably the most joyful, fun fundraiser that I've ever been to. Each of these fundraisers has to do with art that is donated by these incredible artists, but it's also the people who either for their first time are coming to experience this fundraiser, and it's different than any other. It's not just we're going to ask you to donate for the important programs. And if people just want to donate, that's wonderful. But the idea that they are experiencing this creative communication from the artist on the wall without even knowing who they are for the most part, that there's an experience there and there's a bond between the artist and the collector and the bidder who is supporting the organization. And the board members are there and the artists are there. And so there's this connection that is created through that work of art. So this wonderment, it's not just chatting with everybody, but going up and seeing that one speaks to me, and I would like to give in order to support this organization. And I get to take this beautiful work of art home to enjoy and remember. And actually, we've had people who have enjoyed it for a year or two and decide that they want to support the organization again. They have it in their home, they love it, and then they donate it back and say, you know what, let's keep this going. It's almost like paying it forward again and again, that the artist continues to live from wall to wall and home to home, which was some of the most beautiful things that I've ever heard on why some people redonate their artwork, because they said, I've enjoyed it, but I want it to happen again and somebody else to enjoy this in the future. Well, the Red Dot auction is our most important fundraising event of the year. And, as a 501c nonprofit public charity, we offer our programs, whether it's free to the community or at a price that is affordable for people to participate in. It's still a nonprofit, and we do need the community support in order for us to continue to do what we do. And so we have used this as our primary fundraiser for the year to allow us to continue. And those who come may understand we have demonstrations of art. We have ability for people to participate this year in a doodle wall and demonstrations of drawing with artists. So they get the idea about what the experience is for people who participate in the programs. And so oftentimes people who come to the fundraiser because they believe in the mission end up coming themselves, sending their kids, sending their grandchildren to the programs, because they want that feeling that they've gotten to experience at the fundraiser in an ongoing basis. So we've got a new location this year for the Red Dot auction, and it actually is the new home of a classroom for the Chuck Jones Center for Creativity. It's over in Costa Mesa at the Randy Higbee Gallery, and Randy and I have known each other for probably 15 or 20 years. He's been in the art business and the framing business forever. He's got a beautiful space in his warehouse where he holds events. He's got art walls and beautiful lighting, and it's a perfect destination. And when we reconnected maybe 6 or 8 months ago, he said, when we were over at the South Coast Collection, he always wished that we had been collaborating together because he's got this beautiful space. And when these small offices at his location came available, we connected, and it allowed us to find a new location to do private programs, small group programs, even our Girl Scouts programs in this classroom space. But it also gives us access to this larger event space that he has. And so it seems like a perfect solidification of this partnership and the collaboration. He understands art. He's been in the art and framing business for 50 years, and he appreciates art. He sells art. He frames art. And so for us to be able to have a destination where it just feels like an artist's environment to hold this event is fun for everybody. The attendees, the artists, for Randy's people, it is a perfect destination. And we look forward to expanding our programs there in Costa Mesa, kind of near on the backside of the airport at Orange County. So after 4 years of being primarily virtual, we are taking the big step to get back in person for the Red Dot fundraiser, and the first 9 events were all in person, and there is so much energy. So anybody who is in Southern California, we have people flying in from different states to participate, both as artists and as participants in the event, are coming in to experience it. And like I said before, it's the energy that exists in that room, and the ability to find works of art, to meet the artists who have created this, is a unique event. There's nothing like it in the world, as far as I know, where you get to brush arms. We've got Stephen Reese and Trevor Carlton, who are Stephen Reese has been a Simpsons director and storyboard artist for 30 years, and he's going to be there doing demonstrations of drawing. He'll be there to meet and greet and say hello to people. And Trevor Carlton will be doing a live painting at the event. He performs all over the world, and so although we will be streaming the event virtually, there's nothing like experiencing all of this in person. To get to see that artwork that you're bidding on, to meet the artists that you have come to know and love in person, and to experience all the rest of us who will be there. And so, if nothing else, I'm going to be there. So that's probably enough reason for anybody to come anyway. So I hope everybody will join me. One of the things that's asked is we do programs, and we've done programs in I don't know, 15 or 20 states that have trailed along with museum exhibitions. We now have regional centers in the Chicagoland area. We are starting a regional center in Central Florida. There are other pop-up locations that happen. There are smaller events that happen with the Center for Creativity across the country. And I'm asked as I go out and we do these programs, how would we start this? How would we do that? And the vision really started about 16 years ago, in that the idea was to model something here in Southern California, where Chuck lived and we are, and we call it the home base, and we cultivate programs here. But then anybody out there who has the desire to bring the Chuck Jones Center for Creativity programs to their community, we work together to figure out what fits, because not every community does the same thing. It's not like we put up 4 walls and this is the way you do it. It's some people want to do it in community centers. Some people want to bring it into the school. Some people want to do it with autism groups. Some people want to do it with senior centers. That we have programs for just about everybody, and to tailor those, bring them to the community, whether it's one time or an ongoing basis, or training a group of teaching artists in the local community to bring them out. We've done that all throughout the time. And so anybody who's interested in bringing more creative thinking to their youth in particular, or certain groups within their community, we have the ability to reach out to the world to not only train, but oftentimes we can actually facilitate virtually now a teacher to lead with local volunteers. We've done programs that are very large where we have virtual teachers who then can actually see and communicate, because we have two-way communication abilities like we're doing. And so every community can use a little injection of creative thinking in their communities. So we're open to partnering with other nonprofit organizations or educational institutions, museums, to bring these programs to the world. So a lot of times we're asked, why is it that we reach out for donations and support from the community, and whether it's the local community or beyond? And the fact is that Chuck was work for hire at Warner Brothers, and Warner Brothers owns the Looney Tunes, and they're gracious enough to partner with us to allow us to utilize the characters in our programs. And so that is a unique opportunity that we have to utilize really the history of these Looney Tunes, Chuck's genius in these characters that he created. But it's not like he's getting, or anybody gets, royalties on these characters. He doesn't own them. We never own them. So the idea that we need outside support, like any nonprofit needs community support in order to survive, is the same for the Chuck Jones Center for Creativity. And one of the things that Chuck always talked about was figure out what it is that you want to achieve, what you love, and what you want to bring to the world, and then take a step forward. And that's what we've been doing for 24 years now, since the organization was created. And we don't know where the next step of funding is going to come from, but we believe that those in the community and companies who want to sponsor, and grant funders who believe in what we do, will come out as we go out and tell the story and help us to achieve more throughout local community and beyond. We've put a lot of time into figuring out how to make both the in-person and the virtual presentations for the Red Dot auction work this year. And so Ben Olson is actually coming in from Florida to be the virtual host. So if you know of Ben, you'll know that it's going to be an entertaining affair for him, walking around with a camera all night, talking to people, sharing with the community, the virtual community. So if you can't be here locally, if you can't be in person, make sure you sign up. It's a free ticket for the virtual, but allows you to get into the live feed in order to experience what we're sharing. It also will allow you to bid on the artwork. And so Network for Good, if you go to chuckjonescenter.org, you can find out how to get involved with bidding from afar. And you may just bring some disappointment to those in the building by outbidding them and getting a piece of artwork that you love by not even being there. If you're in New York or in Italy or in Asia, you can find something wonderful. So I hope that everybody will join. Love to see you in person, because I'd love to shake your hand or give you a hug. And if not, I'd love for you to experience the virtual presentation that Ben's going to be hosting during the event. Well, this is Craig Kausen. I'm Chuck Jones' grandson, which means nothing other than I had an incredible childhood and upbringing. Had a lot of wonderful time with Chuck until I was 40 years old. But he inspired me to help create the Chuck Jones Center for Creativity. And the Red Dot auction is our most important fundraising event of the year, critical to the organization. And so I ask you to sign up for the Red Dot, whether it be the virtual event or come in person, and bid on some artwork, buy some of the auction items, make a donation to support the organization so that we can continue to bring these programs to the world.